It's welcome to the show from Shihad, Jon Toogood. Jon, good.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
We can hear you. Yeah.
Yay.
Good stuff.
Cool, man.
I've got my headphones on, so.
Tell us, this is sort of the Shihad-y news at the moment, about this. You've made the announcement that it's going to be, it's time to over and out.
Yeah, man, we've been talking about this for about 2 years. And so it's not new news to us. It's new news to everybody else.
Yeah.
But around the time of Old Gods, when we released Old Gods, which we all love, we thought it was a really solid, modern rock record that we could vibe with and sort of said exactly what we wanted to say. But then we basically scheduled a tour, like all the other artists at the time, had to postpone it, scheduled it again, postponed. Then finally, when we got around to doing it, it was about, quite a few months later. And we were still in love with it, which is great. But it was like the idea, I think the idea of touring around the world and spending 8 months away from home, and my 6-year-old and my 9-year-old, and everyone's got young kids. And it's just like, man, no one wanted to do it. No one really wanted to put that time in. And that record, it deserved it, and it was like, at that point, we were just like, right, we've got to think about this. So we basically started 2 years of talking, really being really open with each other, being really honest with each other. And that was the conclusion we came to, was basically, rather than, be weekend warriors about it, we'd rather go out on a high. In my opinion, I reckon Five Eyes and Old Gods are two really strong statements. And it was, we just thought we'd go out with a bang rather than a whimper,
Is it because, did I read in the article 36 years? Is that right?
36 years. So we met at Wellington High School. And Tom was the guy that gave me a copy of AC/DC Highway to Hell and a copy of Metallica's Ride the Lightning, and said, learn this. And he also gave me Man of War, which was terrible because it had a song called All Men Play on 10. And I just couldn't vibe with it because they were dressed like Vikings. But I would definitely vibed with AC/DC, and I vibed hard with Metallica Ride the Lightning. I loved that record and still love it. And I still love Highway to Hell, actually. But then it was just, we were away from there. So it was I was probably 16. I'm 53 now. So yeah.
Over that 36 years of being somewhat of a band, I'm always interested in, how especially New Zealand musicians survive. How much of that time is like full-time muso versus how much of that time is doing other things as well, income-wise, that sort of thing as well?
Yeah. So basically, when we found out that we could play as a band and that we had, 3 other like-minded individuals who wanted to go on that journey, it was just a matter of time. I think we were all basically trying to give up our day jobs. Tom worked in Kingsley Smith Music Store. I worked in Chelsea Records. And it was like, I think it was around the time I was working in Chelsea Records, and I got a fax from Billy Gould, the bass player from Faith No More, who was a band that we loved. And I thought it was a joke at first, but he'd heard our first album that Jazz Coleman produced, because they were massive Killing Joke fans. And they basically said, come on tour with us through Europe. And it was at that point we went, okay, we're quitting our day jobs. And basically we earned less than the dole, but it was all worth it. And as long as we got, a slice of pizza, we were doing what we loved. So yeah, we didn't mind.
I want to throw the ball to Chewy, because he's certainly more of a Shihad and general aficionado, as you can see over his left shoulder.
Yeah,
I
great
do have
poster,
questions
bro.
about the future. Chewy told us a story last night about how he embarrassed himself immensely.
No, I didn't.
In front of you
in
Wellington one night on 3 separate occasions on the same night. I don't think he wants to tell that story again, but Chewy, thoughts, mate? Questions, comments?
That never happened. Look, I'm going to tell a story on behalf of my brother now.
Good.
You guys played an orientation show down here in Dunedin, and you were my little brother's first introduction to a live rock show.
Awesome.
And we snuck him in because he's underage. He was trying so hard to blend in, but not stand out and just be cool, and just standing in front of the sound desk and going, yeah, this is pretty good. This is pretty good. And I grabbed him by the shoulders and I rammed him straight up to the front of the barrier, and I left him there. And I didn't see him for an
That's
hour.
pretty hardcore, bro.
He came out
brutal.
looking like he had gone to war with the biggest grin on his face. And like, we have always been fans, and I would agree. Five Eye was an album that I didn't see that coming. It was,
yeah, man.
It was such a big sound. And seeing that video of seeing Jazz in the studio with you, just like a hype machine, and actually hearing him on tracks yelling at you.
You can hear him. You can hear him all over the album.
It's so good. It's so good.
He grilled us, man.
And Old Gods, just really following on from that, man. Like, talk about finishing on a high.
Yeah,
is just phenomenal. You have skipped Dunedin in the tour, though.
Yeah, and for some reason that seems to be happening a lot. It happened on my solo tour as well, which caused a lot of people to message me on Facebook very angrily. And you know what? It's just, I think it's to do with venue availability. And it's not that we don't like Dunedin. We love Dunedin, and we've got lots of friends down there. And I mean, it's the home of some of the best New Zealand music that ever came out of New Zealand. So, I mean, it's like, that's the home of Shane Carter, who I'm a massive fan of. And so, yes, we would love to be there, but it just hasn't worked out. That's all.
Wanaka, though, we can just go up the road, shall we? Wanaka, they're playing Wanaka.
You can go to Wanaka.
Yeah, man.
Oh, that's not a bad idea, actually. Do you think the venue thing? Sorry, a little bit of a tangent here. You mentioned the venue thing down here. Do you think that that's a problem for a lot of places? That clash of finding a viable venue?
Well, you've got to find the right size venue for whatever you're doing. Like, so for my solo stuff, I want to play in front of 150 people, maybe just in a nice dingy rock and roll bar. There was a place that held maybe 80, and then you go up to Sammy's and it's just too big. It's just like, it doesn't have all the tiers, that it needs to for developing artists. And that's just that. I mean, that's a problem all around the place. I mean, COVID smashed the hospo industry, smashed it hard. It was hard going, not just for the venues, but for people that work there and all the technical staff. And it was a nightmare for our industry. And I think a lot of people are still trying to find their feet, man. I mean, this economy is not helping at all. It's tough out there, man. If you're an artist, if you're a local artist, especially, because internationals come in and just go, whack, and everyone, if it's local, they go, I'll see them next time, So, it's pretty tough out there for artists, local artists especially. Yeah.
Is it different this day and age around radio? I remember coming up through Channel Z and More FM, where I kind of started my radio career, and there was local music quotas and stuff. Is that I'm part of my ignorance, but is that still a thing today?
I think that is still a thing. I mean, I'm not aware of that being pulled, and I think it's such a great move. I mean, because it's responsible for the quality of New Zealand music going up, like from the recording to the live show to everything. So it's like, all of a sudden it became a viable, semi-viable option for a kid who was passionate or in love with music to actually maybe think about a career in music. I know my parents were pretty disappointed that I gave up cricket to play rock and roll, but once they saw me on telly, they backed me 100%. Because I was up there with Coronation Street, man.
That's actually one of my enduring memories of you. And we've done one podcast where I might have told you this and that, but for this audience is the footy show. Fatty Vaught and those guys playing the footy show. But it's not just the footy show song. It's that you obviously, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems obviously went off off plan, ran into the crowd and realized you couldn't get back to the stage in time, so you had a crowd member have to hold the mic for you while you kept playing. Have I pretty much got that right?
That's pretty much it. I mean, it was just like, I think I was going through a phase of like, how can I make this interesting or memorable? So
Yeah.
whatever to mess with the program, like, and I think it's that stuff can work, and sometimes it goes completely wrong, but at least people remember,
Yeah. Well, remembered, what was that, 25 years ago, 30 years ago?
Yeah,
I remember it.
There you go.
There you go. You've been talking about New Zealand music a little bit. I'd like to know from you, who's your favorite? Like, if you were, and I know when you say who's your favorite, it's hard to always think, but who is that band or those people that are at the top of the echelon for you? They're on the what is it called in America? The President's Faces, the Mount, whatever that is. Mount Rushmore, the Mount Rushmore of New Zealand music. But also, so that's one question. So kind of your faves.
Sure.
But also, who do you think, like when you talk about success, who is the most successful New Zealand music that there's been?
Well, I think it'd be hard to look past Neil Finn. I mean, he's managed to be an international success, and broke out of that. A lot of the times that New Zealand bands get big in New Zealand, and then you go over to London and you play in front of a whole bunch of Kiwis who are living in London rather than playing to Londoners, and he managed to break through that. Another person that's done that, I think, is Marlon Williams, and another person that's done that recently is Aldous Harding. Now, so for me, like, to listen to at home, Aldous Harding is my artist of the last 10 years from New Zealand. I've seen her play in Melbourne, and it was like watching someone who was channeling, like it was like, she was better than what normal life would be normally. And, and those records, they're big for us, like the Designer was a record we listened to in this household when my daughter was born. So there's a line in it that says, "Look at all the peaches." So our daughter was called Peaches for the first 4 years, even though that wasn't her name. But it's like, I just think she's magic. Like, she's got something really special going on, and I find her music really inspirational. Yeah.
I like that you mentioned Neil Finn, because I've been having this conversation in my head. Sorry, I apologize, Chewy. Sports analogy coming up. I've had this conversation going on in my head of the greatest basketball player of all times versus the best basketball player of all times, and I think they're different people. I think the greatest basketball player is LeBron James because of his longevity as much as anything but the best ever is Michael Jordan. And I wonder about this, because you said Neil Finn, talking about one of the most successful, because I always thought straight away in my head, probably financially the most successful would be Lorde. But she's still sort of at that, but kind of at the, not quite the start, but, maybe you need longevity to be in that greatest conversation. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny why I didn't even think of Lorde, because, I mean, she's done amazing things. I just think it's my age group, like I was brought up with Split Ends as a kid.
Yeah.
Following that, Crowded House, then following that is solo stuff, and then following that, the Finn Brothers stuff. And it's like, it's always been there, it's always been there. I think Dave Dobbin's similar in that aspect as well. He was a part of my, soundtrack of my life, and still out there making music. So I don't know. I've always been into people that can, have a long career, but also be able to change and be brave enough to change. That's how you get a long career. I mean, there's been albums we've released that we've watched our audience drop to half its size that it was on the album previously, but we had to do that because we had to reimagine what Shihad was each time. And that's why you've still got a band 36 years later. If we did the same thing, we'd be bored shitless, Yeah.
Do you still think about the band as Shihad even when it was Pacifier? Like, in your head, when you think about that moment, are you like, we were still Shihad? Like, how do you think about the band of those time periods?
Well, I mean, I was the last one to fold, and it was 6 months of like being hounded by record companies and managers and everybody, and it was just like, I think I just got to a point where it was like, I just got to get these people off my back, and so I what did we do? We basically went through 1 billion names and we hated them all. And then we went, what's our biggest song overseas? Well, Pacifier is, not thinking that, you know, in America it means a dummy. And it was like, well, it's just like, but I mean, it was all bad news for me. Like, I didn't enjoy it. Our audience certainly let us know at each show. Every encore was Shihad. And it was like, I think we did it for 2 years, and then there was a big show in Perth, and I was sitting backstage with the guys, and it was like the chant was going, the Shihad chant, and I just turned to them and went, fuck America, we're just going to change our name back. And that was it. And that was it, you know.
And for the young people watching, we should probably explain there was a moment in time about 25 years ago where the word jihad became very prominent in the American vernacular because of a couple of buildings that came down. So jihad, Shihad, just for the youngsters who are watching and kind of going, what are they talking about? So there you go. Maybe kind of last question around music, maybe a little bit, but tell us about this, bro. Tell us about this new, I've been listening to it on Spotify. It's loving it. I'm loving the vibe. Tell us about it.
Awesome. So basically, I was living in Melbourne quite happily with my wife and 2 children. Then the COVID thing happened, went into, I think, one of the longest lockdowns on the planet. Melbourne was particularly strict. Personally, I really loved the first one because I finally got to stop hustling and got off the rat race, for the first time in years, and just spent time with my children and went, fuck, man, I'm totally missing out on this shit, and it was like, I was loving that first lockdown. Second lockdown was still okay. By the third time it was bad. But anyway, in amongst all that, I get a call from my brother in Wellington saying, Mum's really sick. She'd been battling with Parkinson's for years. Mum's really sick, and it looks like she's going to pass away. And I just racked my brains to try to get back there, and there was just no way to get back there, man. Even the borders between the States and Australia were closed. And so long story short, I basically ended up having to say goodbye on a phone. And I'm not the only person I've met that have similar stories like that. But I found that highly traumatic, highly surreal. When my dad passed away 12 years previously, I was right by his bed the whole way. My body saw it. I knew it had happened. But when you're talking to someone on a phone, it's not quite real, So, but that was my mum. And also because I was the youngest of 3, I was the one that had to be she held on in a coma for like 12 days, waiting for me to come back. And no one could explain to her that I wasn't going to come back. So I had to be the one to sort of say, hey, Mum, you've done a great job. You can let go now. We're going to be fine. So that was the job I got out of the 3 kids, which was tough to do on a phone. Anyway, following that, when we came out of lockdown, I was touring in Aotearoa with Shihad, and then the Omicron thing happened, and so I got stuck away from my wife and kids in Melbourne for 3.5 months. There was no flights going between the 2 countries. I couldn't let them know when I was coming back. On top of that, I was staying in Wellington with my sister Zoe and my brother-in-law Campbell, and a week into that, my brother-in-law Campbell got diagnosed with a really aggressive terminal cancer. So that was, I was at the coalface of that with my sister, holding it together there. So brutal. Finally got home, decided to move back to Aotearoa. Just my wife said, never again. We don't know how long this is going on for. Let's move back. If we get an MIQ spot, we got an MIQ spot. And then we're like, well, I can't go back to Wellington because after living in Melbourne, which is 4.5 million people, it's just going to be too much, and the entertainment industries in New Zealand it's pretty much in Auckland or, Tamaki Makaurau. And so I didn't know anything about it. I've been to Tamaki Makaurau a million times, love it, great, but I've never lived here. So I just was in MIQ, Googling best primary school, Auckland, and then got out of MIQ, and did our first grocery shop and went, oh my God, we've made the biggest mistake of our lives because it was so expensive. But then we got used to it and it was cool. And Dana, my wife, she's Sudanese, and she has family living out in Flatbush, which is east. I didn't know anything about the cultural landscape of NZ. So I end up signing a tenancy for a place in Howick. And so I've never lived in such a, like a true blue national stronghold. And it was a real eye-opening experience, like it was very quiet, no graffiti on the walls, which was very weird coming from Melbourne. And everyone was, our neighbours were beautiful. Like, it was really good for me. Like, it actually was really good because I grew up in Arty-Farty, progressive Wellington, moved to Arty-Farty, Melbourne, surrounded by artists the whole time, and then finally come back to my home country, and I'm living in a very conservative suburb, pretty much, and yet I was still meeting people that I could relate to and I can understand, like, I'm a bit older now, so, everyone's got their kids and stuff, but everyone's quietly, cautiously friendly, but keeping to themselves, and I'm not used to that. But it was, however, a really good place to reflect for me. I set up a studio downstairs and I started writing just to make sense of all this personal carnage. I couldn't understand it. I couldn't process that trauma of saying goodbye to my mum on a phone. I couldn't deal with the fact that my brother-in-law was there and then he wasn't. And I've always made sense of the world via music. That's basically it. Music makes sense to me when the world is mad, and the world is mad, especially now. It's mad, and I just needed some music to say, it's okay, bro. It's okay. And that wasn't Shihad music. That wasn't what I needed, Shihad is there to rage. It's to rage against injustice, and it's to rage against, inequality, and it's to rage against, ignorance, and but this wasn't what I needed. It was very local. I need some really local, small, gentle music. And so I started writing it, man. And that was, I think I got 8 songs in and I was like, shit, man, I think some of this is probably the best lyrics I've ever written.
Wow.
And it might be quite cool to share it with people. So I played it to my record company and they agreed and they put it out. Yeah. And I'm really in love with that record. I find it very comforting. Yeah.
I was going to say, I do want to stop your flow there, but
sure.
I understand the thing about the parents. My mum, 2018, passed away of motor neuron disease. And obviously there's a terminal time period. And basically she went into the hospital at one point and we knew she wasn't coming out. And so I got phoned. It was a Monday, and it was like, get on the first plane. You got to get up here as quick as you can. Get on the one. And I don't know what it was, but I had this thing inside me that went, she's going to wait. Yeah, she's not going anywhere. I'm the baby. No shit, she's going to wait. Not a problem. No, I didn't like take 3 weeks then and go on a holiday, but I got the flight that was in the afternoon, got up there in the evening, walked into the hospital. And what did she call me? Oh, I walked in and my hair was like this, my beard was like this. And she goes, the wild man of Borneo. And then we hung around for a couple of days just talking and chatting, and
awesome.
Then she went. But I just had that sense though. I was like, she ain't going. She's going to wait for me. I feel confident. And she did. What I was going to ask you though, I do want to ask you about your life now, your beliefs, your processes, but because today has had, well, you're a victim. That's the wrong word. You are someone who was impacted by the lockdowns. The first report on COVID is coming out today. How do you feel about you not being able to get back? Do you have any bitterness there yourself, or what are your thoughts?
No, because that was part of the sacrifice I was willing to make to protect people like my mother. That was what I was doing it for people that couldn't protect themselves.
Yeah.
And it was interesting to me, like. I had people turning to me going, man, surely you're going to be rage against the machine. Yeah, man. It's like, no, man, I believe in doing your best for the community that you're in. It's like, and most artists I know, I like that, yeah, we see injustice in the way that we're governed, and we see how people with money have got more influence in our democracy than say I do. But that doesn't mean that when a thing that's happening to everyone, no matter how rich or poor or where you're from, is happening, you just got to do your part for the community. I mean, that's how I looked at it, and that's how I still look at it. And shit, that hurt not being with my mum, but that's still a sacrifice I was prepared to make for my community. And that's why, I just find I found the body sovereignty movement, and I just thought it was really selfish. That's pretty much it. You know, I can understand it. It was a traumatic time, and everyone processes trauma differently, and that's how they decided to process it.
Yeah.
But that wasn't the way I was deciding to process it. I was going to do my part for the community, and it never changed. I was sitting in Botany Town Square, eating St. Pierre's sushi with my kids, and a guy walked up to me and said, "Is it true that the government tortured you?" And I was like, "Is this guy fucking serious?" He was serious, and I said, "No, that is not what happened." And he was talking about the fact that I was on those billboards, the 2 shots for summer billboards. And then when I said no, he was like totally flabbergasted and just slowly walked away. And I was just kicking myself afterwards, thinking, "Fuck, I should have said yes. Can you give me $500?" You know, like. But it was like Facebook had come into the real world. You know, like you know, and it was like there's a lot. That really was a traumatic time for everybody, man. And you know, but people chose different avenues and pathways to go through for dealing with it. And I think Facebook was really damaging to a lot of people's psyches and a lot of people's minds, and that isolation and that need of human connection, but in the wrong places, you know?
It broke people, man. And the people are still broken.
And it broke relationships within families, and it broke friendships, and it broke everything. You know?
And it's still going on. We had Dr. Gary Piha on last night talking about, you know, there's this outbreak of whooping cough in New Zealand at the moment, and the government announced it the same day that they announced a whole bunch more cuts to the health system. And I put a clip out today on Twitter, and because he told us, and I have to be careful to make sure it's not telling stories out of school, but he hinted at the fact that some doctors are concerned about speaking out. And it seems that they're more concerned now under this government for getting like hauled into HR sort of thing than in general. So he told us that story. So I put that on Twitter today. And of course, the first response was, "Were you as concerned about all those doctors around COVID who also got shunned by society?" I'm just like, you guys, like, firstly, it's over. But, you know, it's so completely different. People are still, when I say broken, there's going to be people who have had an experience like yours, who are still heartbroken but accept it. And then there's other people who are like broken because they were on those parliament lawns, literally wearing tinfoil hats, and they still believe everything is against them. There's that as well, which is still going on.
It's like a finger trap, though. The harder you pull against it, the tighter it becomes, and it's really hard to pull people out of that when they're in there. And in fact, the more you attack them, the more entrenched they become. So you can't use logic, and you can't use shaming them. You can't, that's not going to work. You've got to appeal to the universal humanity in them. And it's hard. I understand that that's hard and it takes time, but that's the only way through this shit, man. I mean, like, if you're on the good side of the force, love is the long game, man. You know, it's just, that's it. You know, as soon as we start playing by the bad guys' rules and go for the quick kill, we're just as bad as the bad guys. So it's like, you've got to, it was traumatic, and I understand how you can get in these jams, and I can understand the need for connection, but it was, it's dangerous for social cohesion, and it's really not healthy for society in general.
We've had a lovely journey down the music line. I would like to, if you're okay for time, to keep you for a bit more, just to talk about where you are in life and stuff today. Before we do that, because there are some Shihad comments, I want to put a couple of these up because people have been lovely and offering super chats. Gareth says, "End of an era for me with Shihad. I still remember hearing it on BFM's Hard, Fast and Heavy show in the late 1980s and writing to Shihad to order their demo cassette. Loved them ever since. Thank you for your super chat.
That's
Karen.
a deep cut,
man.
A deep cut?
Man, those demo cassettes, I hand wrote all the track listing and everything, man. Yeah, so that, yeah, he probably got my handwriting and stuff, yeah.
Nice.
Wicked. That's so cool,
There's one
man.
here from Freesoul that says, pretty sure I was the first to play Shihad on RNZ in my Kiwi music show and give a few oldies heart attacks. So
Good.
there's a couple of
Good on
super
them.
chats that have come
Good
in.
on you.
Good on them.
Yeah, nice. Excellent.
I don't know you personally, John. Like I said, I've interviewed you once before, and I'm fascinated with your story about your conversion to Islam and stuff. But what I'm also fascinated about is I see you popping up on my Twitter feed every now and again, and I'm interested in the kinds of posts that I put up that you are supportive of with your like. You seem to be, at least of the mindset of I hate this term because the right has bastardized it, but the social justice kind of world. You seem to be as left as some of us lunatics out there, and I'm interested in how that works in your head, if it's right, first of all, and how you see the world from how society treats one another way.
Yeah, okay, so I was brought up by two London working class immigrants that came over in the 50s. My dad was a cabinet maker. He was the sort of guy that was always fixing everybody else's house for free while our house was falling apart. But he had that community spirit. It always, growing up, he always gave me a sense of, you've got to look at the people who've got less than you and see what they need. And I always had that outlook. I hate injustice. Like, I hate seeing powerful people prey on people less powerful than them. It makes my blood boil. And yes, so I don't know. I think that came from my upbringing, just with working class parents who were, we didn't have much growing up, man. Like I remember days where we didn't have anything for dinner, so they'd make a fun game out of it we had a gas heater, so we'd put a bit of white bread and toast. We were allowed to toast our own toast in front of the gas heater. So yeah, I mean, but I never knew we were like poor growing up because there was so much love in our house. I never felt like I couldn't do anything with my life. My parents always made me feel like whatever I chose to do, if I was passionate about it, I could do it. And it wasn't until I went to high school and met people who had, were financially better off than our family, that I was like, oh, is that what that is? Okay, cool. But I don't know. I just always find the idea of people with influence and power preying on people with less influence and power. Really, I hate it. I hate seeing it. And meeting, we were staunch atheists. Staunch humanist atheists is probably how you describe us as a collective, Shihad, right? We went to Wellington High School, pretty progressive, co-ed. You'd get slapped for being a racist or a sexist. You're smashed, and it was good because that's what we thought was normal. It's like, well, you should be respectful to everybody. You should basically apply the principle that you treat each other, treat other people like you'd want to be treated yourself. And that's how we sort of saw the world. And I used to really rail against organized religion as well. But then I met Dana, and she embodied and actually lived the thing we were talking about and theorizing about. But because we were such struggling artists who never knew when we were getting paid next, we'd always hold on to our money, any money we had, for dear life, and never give it away because you didn't know when you're getting paid. But she was the sort of person that had $10 in her pocket, and if she saw someone in need, that $10 theirs, because it's not hers. It's been given. It's a gift from the universe, or Allah, and it's you pass it on, because the question you get asked when you die is, what did you do with the stuff I gave you? And if you sat on it like a dragon, hoarding gold, you're probably going to the wrong place, So Yeah, so probably when you put up something that's dealing with that stuff, I'll like it. I'm a bit of a voyeur on Twitter, man. I don't want to get in the ring, like,
Yeah.
or I'll just like the fuck out of something that I agree with,
We hear you. We
and
understand. Trust us. We
yeah,
understand.
because it's a fucking jungle out there, and it's I just yeah, it's a jungle out there, bro.
What I hear you saying when you're talking about the people who you're better off than is you're talking about vulnerable people, looking after the vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
And I see that through many religions. And even though some of the religions, like I was brought up Catholic and stuff, and some of those religions I think are misrepresented by the people who are a part of it.
Sure.
If you look at the pure teachings, you look after the widows and orphans.
Yeah.
You look out, you give the person the shirt off your back. That's what I read in those kind of holy book sort of thing. But I was wondering, speaking of the vulnerable question, what do you see when you look at the government we've got today?
I just think you basically got a guy at the top who's not really acting like a leader, who's basically he's not, I don't think he's an evil man, I don't think he's a bad man, but I do think that he lacks empathy for people who haven't had the life he's had. And that's purely from experience. I just think he's grown. He was born in Howick, brought up there. He was even got to come and speak at. I got an email from my daughter's daycare while I was out there saying, "Hey, your local MP." This is before he was Prime Minister. Is going to come and talk to the kids about what it's like to be an MP. It's like my kid's like 3 years old. It was just a photo op, and I was
but in fairness,
no way.
But in fairness, that might have been the level of his experience as a politician. Maybe he needed to pitch it to that community just because that's
I don't know,
all he knew about it. Maybe.
But I just thought I'm not having my children used as a photo op for him.
Yeah, definitely.
But I do think. But I was tempted because I knew he had 7 houses at that point, and we didn't own one. And yet me and my wife were working our ass off, going, surely we should be able to afford a house for our children. And I just thought, how is a guy with 7 houses going to have any understanding of that experience of not being able to afford your own home for your own family? No matter if you're even making decent money, how are you supposed to empathize? How can you make policy when you don't actually have that experience? And I think that's coming through in the way he's governing or not governing. I think he has shown himself to be a bad politician in the fact that he's given way too much power to Seymour and way too much power to Winston, but probably more to Seymour. Seymour's an ideologue and he's dangerous. I think he's dangerous because he believes his bullshit, and his bullshit is based on a fundamental inaccuracy of the human, what it's actually about to be human. Basically, it takes into no account history. It gets rid of history, and then therefore can't address inequities based on the history of say a country like Aotearoa. So it's that modern American libertarianism, which is it's bullshit, and it doesn't take into account for past injustice or people who start the race further back than you did, and it's not real. So he's dangerous. Winston, I think Winston will say whatever he needs to say to just keep getting that ministerial wage.
The baubles of power.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty basic. He's used to getting that much money per year, and he'll just keep doing it. What is it now? It used to be the Chinese. Now it's the vaccination people. Now it's it's whatever it needs. He just needs 5%. It's very cynical, but at least you know what you're getting with him. Seymour's the dangerous one, and the fact that Luxon's an empty vessel means that Seymour's got more power in the situation than the vote that he got warrants, and it's a bad situation. Personally, it makes John Key's government look like ninjas, like these guys. This is tragic, but it's almost comedically tragic, and it's like it's so bad you've got to just laugh at times. But then you're going, but people are getting hurt by this as well, so I can't laugh. Yet it's a bad situation. Yeah, it's a bad situation.
Hey, just one more question from me.
I knew you were all right. I think we found a third host, Pat.
No, look, I just got one more question, and then I'll shut up and we can talk for 2
I'm
hours.
going to get in trouble for all this, but whatever.
Yeah. We'll clip it and amplify it and make sure everyone knows your terrible views, John. What about what we saw in the Hikoi last week? What about this government and Indigenous rights and stuff?
That was the first time I felt proud of being a New Zealander for a long time. It was like, yay, man.
Felt
I was
good,
so proud. I was so proud. And so beautiful to watch that many people together with that much joy and that much love. And you know what? I mean, I honestly think, I remember catching a flight from, I think it was Taupo or something like that. And I sat next to this real nice guy. He knew I was in Shihad, and he was just down there for the cricket or something. And he was a National Party supporter, but it was right when the, Seymour had said, let's, get rid of funding for, school lunches for underprivileged kids. And he was going, that's not what I voted for, that wasn't, I think this government's out of step with even centre right, what I would call traditional National Party voters.
What you're saying. What you're saying is this is not the National Party of John Key. That's what you're saying.
It is so not, and I didn't like that, but this is way more extreme, and almost the start, having people like Shane Jones using terms like, I don't know, those Americanisms are popping in now, and it's like, that poison, we can't escape it. It's a worldwide phenomenon. So we're just going to have to keep fighting the good fight,
It's the recklessness and the meanness.
It is reckless.
I think that has really caught me out by surprise. And I think a lot of people, like when they won the election, I was like, okay, it's going to be like, there's going to be a lot to disagree with over the next 4 years. I just never expected the speed that they started swinging and demolishing everything around them. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's almost, like they shot themselves in the foot with the fairies, but because based on, Labor did it, so we've got to not do it. It's like not even looking at what it was. It is vindictive, and it is like now it's our turn. We'll show you how it's done. Well, like basically the economy's sucking hard at the moment, and I know a lot of people who have lost their jobs. I've people around where we live in Avondale are doing it tough, man. And it's like, and there doesn't seem to be much light at the end of the tunnel, I've got to say. And that's why you've just got to be, you can't change the world. Like, that's why I don't comment on Twitter, because the way I sort of worked out, the only thing I could do was talk to people one-on-one and go, how are you going? Like what's happening with you? Hear their story and go, well, maybe blah, blah, blah. But that's the only way you can do anything at the moment. It's just this government's out of control. There's a real lack of leadership at the top. And it's dangerous.
There is one other thing you can do, especially when it comes to Nicola Willis, and that's you can buy some of our merch. This is
that was so smooth.
Well, like seamless plug there, bro.
I used to work in radio. I know how to do this. We're sponsored by. This is just to show you, John. This is our product for Nicola Willis. We call her Nikki No Boats because she's got rid of the ferries. Gold. And that is going like hotcakes. Going like hotcakes. Hey, you've been so generous with your time. Chewy, is there anything you want to ask John before we bless him and send him on his way?
I'm not so sure it's a question. I just want to point out that sometimes in our chat, we've got a lovely community here at BHN that watch us live and comment. And I'm going to hit you actually with a question from one of them in a little bit.
Oh, good.
But we've also got the crunchy little croutons in our community, the guys that come in and sort of go, bloody lefties. One of them's just realised that you might be a lefty.
Oh dear.
And it's making me laugh because I know that there's a through line through most of your albums. Thin White Line, All the Young Fascists. So many songs that this shouldn't surprise them, but you have surprised them. So well done there.
Yeah, no, I mean, honestly, when Old Gods came out, bro, like I got people going, I will never listen to Shihad again. You know, you guys have been brainwashed by a Marxist Black Lives Matter movement and blah, blah, blah. But inevitably, you'll go to their Facebook page. It'll say follows Tucker Carlson, InfoWars. And at that point, it's just like, well, I don't really want that at my shows anyway. I want positivity, you know, so... Yeah.
You're in good company. I the amount of American right wingers that have no idea what Rage Against the Machine is about always makes me chuckle.
Exactly. I mean, we've never hidden, where we stand politically. Yes, we do it through art rather than politics. I could not be a politician because I would lose my rag and I wouldn't be able to. I couldn't do it. You know. That's the beautiful thing about being an artist. You can stand outside society and look at it, and you can have a little poke around, you know, which when you're on the inside, I don't think you can afford to do that. There's good people still in politics. There's still people trying to fight the good fight, and it's not for me. But yeah, I think there's a physicality of rock that definitely makes people see past the lyrics at times, you know, and but yeah, I just find it quite surprising that they haven't picked up on that because my lyrics are pretty straight up, you know.
Yeah. Well, look, as I said, thank you so much for being a part of what we're doing. Peter Symes says, such a good conversation. Just ordered Jon's new album. So there you go. You've made a matter of sense off this conversation with us today, probably. Well, maybe dollars, singular dollars. That's really good. Sorry, Chewy.
Peter's also got the question that I wanted to throw your way.
Cool.
Love to hear Jon's opinion on physical media versus Spotify, and I guess in general streaming.
Absolutely. So streaming, it's so convenient. I mean, honestly, like being able to just go, oh, Kendrick's got a new album, cool, let's listen to it on the way to school, let's go, bang. And that's great, you know, and then, you know, but I still love that interactive thing of getting a piece of vinyl, taking it out of its case, putting it on the thing, watching the needle hit the thing, and then the music comes out, and then you've got the lyric sheet in front of you. I love that immersive experience. So I do both of those things. I just oscillate between those two extremes. I think, I don't think artists make much money out of streaming, but it is a good way to reach people with your music. I think if you really, really want to support an artist, the physical thing is probably the good thing to do. But then you've got to have something to play on.
And go to their shows. It's the same as always. The big artists do well everywhere, because I once looked up what an artist will earn off a Spotify play, and it was something like 0.00003 to 0.00005 cents a play. Yeah. So I worked it out as a 0.00 whatever it is for the average, and I did it on Ed Sheeran's, the number of plays he's had. It was over $100 million. You know, so the big guys are still the big guys, and even though you know those big guys would have done that with CDs last time, it's just a shift for them, isn't it?
It is a shift, yeah, for sure.
Final tour, Chewy. Do you want to read it out for us blind old men?
Oh, okay. There we go. Starting, well, that'll be a good show. December 29th in New Plymouth. Wanaka, which I have just bought tickets for while we were talking.
Awesome, Chewy. Yes.
Wanaka? That
what
looks
date's
like
Wanaka?
a hell of a... Wanaka is the 4th of January.
Cool.
So that's definitely worth a mission. I've seen you play in Christchurch so many times, and I know so many people in Christchurch love Shihad. So that show's going to go off. I think the whole tour is going to go off. I think people knowing that it is the last shot, and as I said, going out on a high. The vibes will be impeccable.
Got my ticket. Yes,
Kim got her ticket. Yes.
Yeah, there you
Nice one, Kim.
Oh, and the other thing I wanted to say, the title for the new album is like there's always a sweet spot when it's a good album name, and it's good. It's a good cover as well. Like, I think you did well, mate.
Yeah, that was a shot taken at the Blue Pool, which is the southern end of Piha. I've always had a fascination for the west coast of Tamaki Makaurau. Like, it's when I used to not live here, but I had to stay somewhere. I used to stay with Moana Maniapoto out in Muriwai, and
Nice.
she's a really good friend of mine. I think she's fantastic. She fights a good fight. And she speaks the truth, which I love. And we just got on, and I always found writing out there really, really good. So I just thought, yeah, let's go out there and take photos, and you know, the universe just gave us that lighting. There's no trickery to that shot. It's just,
so that's a for real shot.
It's a real shot.
Because those waves in the background are things I'm just like, holy crap.
Yeah, they're huge. So it's a place called the Blue Pool in Piha, southern end. It's just because of the way it's made up, you can get really close to these huge waves, and they can't hit you because there's a wall of rock. Yeah, it's cool.
Piha, for people who don't know, Piha, West Auckland Beach, kind of surface spot out there. My parents had experience. We had friends who had a batch like on the Piha beach, and my mum and dad used to travel for insurance conferences, and they'd go to Hawaii for an insurance conference, and there'd be a notice on the beach that said, water's dangerous, no swimming today, and all the Kiwis are going, we swim at Piha, that's nothing, and they just all they all pile into the water and swim at Waikiki and stuff. So yeah, it's a special spot.
It's beautiful. I mean, it's like, I love it because it's like, it's beautiful and grand, but it also, you don't want to be messing with it, you know, like, it's bigger than you and it reminds you, which is why I took those photos out there, you know. Yeah.
Hey, John, it's been amazing.
Awesome.
We've kept you for far too long, but you know,
well, good,
it's sort of what we do.
Great chat. It was cool.
And so thank you for spending time with us. Good luck on the tour. I'm sure there'll be some sad moments with the thing wrapping up as well, but there'll probably also be lots of joy, because it's always exciting to think about what's next in life and what's the next stage in life. I am going to get I'm thinking of, I don't have a record player yet, but I want to buy one. Maybe yours will be the first vinyl I buy.
Dude, either get a Project or a Riga Planner 1. Those things sound wicked, I mean, it's still under $1,000, but it's still a bit of an outlay, but bro, it'll reward you. Yeah, sounds
amazing. Yeah. Hey, John, thank you so much for joining us. If people want to follow you, find out more about you, where's the best place to see you online, sort of thing?
I usually keep my Facebook page up to date. It's just Jon Toogood with no H. Yeah, John.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us. Guys. The audience has loved it, and we'll see you on Twitter.
And thanks, Chewy, for your support, man. It's wicked.
No worries, man.
Appreciate it.
I'm going to shoot my shot here. I missed out on the reprint of Killjoy. You don't have any.
Yeah, well, we are actually chatting about merch items, and I was sort of like bringing up vinyl with the guys, because I think that's the ultimate merch item personally for me. But you know, it's just such a nice thing. Even if you don't have a turntable, you can stick it on your wall. It looks great. But there is part of that thing where you go, well, buy it. There's only 500 copies, and then if you turn around later and go, well, actually, there's more. You know what I'm saying? So, but you know, you can always try discogs.com. But last time I checked on there, I saw one selling for about $500. So
I've got an alert on it.
Yeah, it can get pretty steep. Yeah, it can get pretty steep. Hey, so we'll see. I'll see what I can do. There you
go. Hey, very last question. It's just a yes or a no. It's a very important question for me. This is going to determine whether the interview has been successful or not. When you take that photo, is there actually a guitar in that case?
There actually is.
Oh, there is?
Yeah, there is. Yeah, I was hating it because like walking on sand with boots, it's just already hard work, and then it was even more hard work. Yeah.
A true rocker can never leave his guitar behind, eh? Absolutely. Always coming with you. Hey, Jon, thanks so much for joining us again, mate. It's been an absolute blast. A very different show for us, but loving it. Loved you to come on board, and thanks for what you've done, and congrats on the career, and we look forward to some more of the new stuff as it comes through.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
All right.
Awesome.
Cheers, mate.
All the best, Jon. Thanks so much. Whew, that shot was amazing. Oh, yeah, okay, you can breathe now, can you? Yeah, I saw Paula in there something about fangirling.
No, I held it together. It was very professional.
There we go. There we go. Chewie is fangirling and flirting. How cute. And probably effing shameless. Love it.